David Jenyns, you are an entrepreneur. You have created many businesses from closing stores to SEO service and a lot in between. You are also a fellow podcaster. You interview business leaders and you try to share all the information with us fellow listeners. So that's a great service that you do to the community. You are also a professional speaker. You are based in Melbourne, Australia, but I hope one day you will come to Canada and share your experience with us. And you are the author of 2 books. The first one is The Authority Content, and the second one is this one, Systemology. Create time, reduce errors, and scale your profits with proven business systems. David, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me on the call. And I want to come visit Canada as well. I've got a team member based over in Canada as well. So it's high on my list.
Wow. So David, you know what? It has cost me a lot of money not to meet you before. And I have failed twice, 2 different businesses because I didn't have a business, a system. I have failed in the way that I burned out and I closed because I couldn't organize things. I had a dance school and what was my other business? A rental, a tourist rental business, and I burned out and I closed both of them because I couldn't organize myself and have a system to do what you are doing right now, which you have a business and you hire a CEO to run it for you. And then you get to run around doing podcasts and talking to other people, and doing all kind of adventures. So yeah, I'm just so upset that I didn't meet you before. David, I wonder if you could start by telling us a little bit about your entrepreneurial past. How do you get started in business?
Yes, like a lot of business owners, I've tried a lot of different things over the years and I've had a variety of different businesses as well. It sounds like you've had some very varied businesses in different industries. For me, I had a rock and roll clothing music store. I had an online business that sold education in the stock market space and also had a digital agency. I sold pieces of the MCG. So there are lots of different things that I've done over the years. Probably the one that I'm most well known for, or where I got stuck the longest, was in the digital agency. So I was in that business for working in the day-to-day operations for well over 10 years. And I just tricked my brain into thinking that for some reason this business was different. I kind of had a sense that business systems were really important to grow a business beyond the founder. But I told myself, hey, this business is too creative. I can't systemize it. I thought Google's always updating the algorithm. So what's the point of systemizing? Because it's just going to very quickly get out of date when I write a system or a process. I thought my team wouldn't even follow the systems if I created it. So I had a lot of this baggage in my head that made me think that particular business couldn't be systemized. And it wasn't until I found out we were pregnant and we were having my first child when I said to myself, I don't want to be that dad who's always too busy, that business owner who works the weekends and early mornings and late nights and just isn't present for the family. So I said, right, this is going to be my turning point. And I heavily focused on systemizing the business and challenged a lot of those assumptions that I had about business systems. And then I realized, hang on, every business you can capture and bottle what it is that you're doing, and you can get it to a point where you can deliver that core product or service without key person dependency. And that starts with the business owner, but then it moves on to other team members as well. And then I was able to step out of the operations. I hired a CEO. She ran that business for 3 years. And for those who end up reading the Systemology book, the epilogue right at the end of that book talks about that business. I never had any plans on selling it. It was quite a profitable business for me. And I was taking a distribution every quarter. But we had, an unexpected set of circumstances where my CEO, she had to move back to America and she resigned. So at that point, I'd been out of working in that business for 3 years. I was getting Systemology and System Hub off the ground. And that was really where my passion lies. I kind of lost the passion for that first business. And then I was at that crossroads. I said, well, what do I do? And because I'd systemized it, because I got to a point where it was working without me, I had something that was saleable. And we ended up selling that business. And the guy who bought it actually said there are two reasons he bought it. One was because it was working without me for 3 years, and the second was its financial performance. So it's the systems and the processes that create a lot of options for business owners, and probably why I'm so passionate now about it is I've seen it firsthand what it can do, not only from a freedom and time perspective, but a growing and scaling perspective, and making the business owner a business owner, as opposed to oftentimes business owners are more employees of their own business.
Right. Okay. So I have a major pushback. When I was a school owner, I was everything from organizer to janitor and everything in between. And I read Michael Gerber's book, The E-Myth, and he was giving me ideas on how I should create systems. And I never took action. I said, that sounds like a wonderful idea. Everything makes sense, yet I never did anything. And I think my situation is not unique. I think most business owners, they know that they have to create a system in order to be successful, because they cannot multiply themselves. They work themselves to death. And still, even though you put everything together in this book, the quite very few take action. Can you, so
Yeah.
can you can you give
Yes.
us a kick in the butt and
Yeah.
make us do that initial
Well,
mindset that we
yeah.
had to systematize our business and then get help, fire
Yeah.
ourselves?
Definitely a big one is because I was the same. I'd read the E-Myth, and there's a lot of other great books like Built to Sell and Scaling Up and Traction. A lot of these books, they talk about systems, and everybody as a business owner that I've chatted with, they're sold on the idea of systems. We all agree that systems are important. So then the question becomes, well, why don't you do it then if you know it's important? And oftentimes the question that I get asked by a lot of business owners is, where do I get started? Because they know that systems and processes are important, but then they don't know where to start. They're too busy. They've got a lot of baggage around business systemization. Like in their head, when you say what is a good looking system or a process, they might be thinking about McDonald's and how they've got a very well systemized operation, and they've systemized and documented everything to an absolute minute detail. And then they think in their head, oh, that's what I need to create to systemize my business. And then that is quite paralyzing, because they've been systemizing for 60 years. And here it is, you just getting started out. Of course, to try and systemize to the level that they are today, yeah, just setting yourself up for failure. So it's part of it is reshaping the way that you think about what a system or a process is, and also challenging some of those thoughts. I often say that the business owner is the worst person to be creating the systems and the processes, because oftentimes they're not a systems person. Like, they're a big picture thinker. They move quickly, they solve problems, they go to whatever part of the business needs their help, and that's where they're drawn. Where systems and processes, creating those, is you need to be a little bit more measured, and it's a different type of thinking. Oftentimes it's more of an operations manager. It's someone who likes detail and process, who naturally creates checklists. Oftentimes they're the best person to drive it forward. So one of the things I tell business owners is to create systems, make it a two-person job. Have the person who has the knowledge, which might be the business owner or some other team members, but then get another person who does the actual documentation. And you might just record them doing the task. It might be a simple system, could start off with something as simple as an iPhone recording, or maybe a Zoom or a Loom screen recording. Like, keep it very simple, record the person doing the task, and then have another person who watches the video to pull out some of the key steps. And just those couple of little tweaks on its own can really make the process a lot easier.
Right. Well, you know what? I'm organizing myself to follow your you know, one of the biggest impediment is letting go. Okay, so I have
Yeah.
this system going. I know how to do it, and then I'm afraid to give my baby to somebody else. So
Yes.
that's one of
Yes.
my big and I'm sorry, I'm starting this episode with all the pushbacks, and then I know that you have 7 stages to systematize a business, but let me also push back in another way. So we all know Starbucks, we all know Howard Schultz, who created this amazing brand, and then he hired a CEO who got a business that was running smoothly, and then the CEO kind of screwed everything up, and then Howard Schultz had to come out from retirement to take over the job once again, and I guess make it work again, and I guess now he has another CEO. But that's another fear that some of the business owners have. Okay, this
Yes.
person is just gonna screw up everything that I have created for many years.
Yeah. And that's one of those things, because the business owner, it gets reinforced to them that the reason that they've had success and built the business up to where they are is because they've micromanaged, they've got across everything, they've made sure that the client gets a great result. That's why the clients keep on coming back. That's why they're referring work, because the business owner is often very particular to make sure it's delivered to a very high standard. So I get it. And every business starts that way. That's how you find product to market fit. That's how you figure out what it is that you do and how you do it. The trap is that business owners get stuck there. To keep growing a business, there has to be a point where you let go. Otherwise, what ends up happening is you train all of your clients, all of your prospects, all of your staff to come to you as the business owner. Whenever there is a problem, then we go to the business owner because the business owner solves that problem. When it's a client, well, the business owner, they were the salesperson and I chatted with them right at the start. I've built the relationship with them. Well, let's go to the business owner if I need to check in on something. And obviously there's not enough time in the day for the business owner to be doing everything, especially if they want to grow the business as well and pick up new clients. So there has to become a point where you realize if your business is dependent on you or really any team member, the business is actually broken. Because what happens if something happens to you or something happens to one of those team members? Everything, does it just fall over in a heap because no one else knows how to do it? So understanding that the business's job, it also supports like all of your staff and your team. So it's actually, if the business fails, it's doesn't just hurt you, it hurts the rest of the team as well. So your business's job is also to look after the team. Right. So a huge risk that you have in your business is that person dependency. So we need to figure out how to remove that person dependency, or you're creating a huge problem that oftentimes business owners don't think about too much until it's too late. It's when, Jane in accounts, who's been with you for 10 years and she knows how to issue invoices and reconcile and all those sorts of things, when something happens to her family and she has to leave quickly and then you're left with this big mess, oftentimes that's when you're thinking about it. Yeah. But we want to try and think about it before that, because that helps to de-risk the situation for everybody. So yeah, definitely it's something, again, we said it right at the start, all business owners deep down at some level know that systems and processes are important. Deep down, they want to be able to, when they're on holiday, to actually go on a holiday, or to make sure that things in the business happen without them so they can continue to grow it. I think when you really dig into it, everybody agrees that. Right. So then the question is, how do I systemize? And is there, because sometimes business owners reach the conclusion, they go, oh yeah, but I've tried to systemize in the past and it didn't work. Therefore, they'll go, oh, maybe I'm not a systems person. And maybe I won't worry about this because I tried and I failed. And I think that's a sad situation to get into, where you just think, oh, I'm just not a systems person. And I can tell you that just because you might not see yourself as a systems person, driven business, like it is quite common for the business owner not to be a systems person. And usually, I mean, Gino Wickman wrote a great book on this. It's on my bookshelf there somewhere, called Rocket Fuel. And he talks about this idea of two people in the leadership team that are very important. He calls them the visionary and the integrator. Michael Gerber calls them the leader and the manager. It doesn't matter what name you give it, but it's this idea that the leader is the person who comes up with the idea and the vision for the business. They're the founder, the startup person. They get the business up and running. But then to move it through to that next level, you have to get the integrator or a manager, someone who steps in, who helps with process, who takes over some of that responsibility, and then allows the business owner to step out of some of those key roles.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to use your book as my Bible, because my next business is not going to fail. I'm just going to give you one last pushback. So we have beautiful system. You have created, you have pointed out this, what is the 7 stages of creating a system. But then something like COVID-19 happens. I mean, there is no one had a playbook for that. And, you know, even if you have a capable SEO, this is the time where the owner has to come back and help out, because this is unprecedented. So I guess I don't expect an answer from you, just some comments on what to do in those situations.
Definitely. So initially, when you're getting started out, you don't systemize for every possible variation and scenario. You systemize for the most probable. So we think about, what is the primary target audience and who are the people that we want to attract into the business? And we think about, what is our primary product or service that we sell to that target audience? And we systemize that piece first. And then we also start to think about, what are some of the key systems in each of the different departments? So we get to a point where we have, you know, by departments, I mean sales, marketing, HR, finance, management. We get a minimum set of systems that helps the business to function at a real basic level. And by doing that, what that actually does is it helps to relieve some of the pressure, free up some of the team members, remove some of the key person dependency, so that when something like COVID-19 happens, the business owner isn't so in the operations that they don't have space to be able to even think about what a solution is. Because what should happen is, if the business is kind of functioning, that gives the chance for the business owner to have a little bit of space. Something like COVID-19 happens, they can then jump in and spend a little bit of time going, well, let's solve this problem or situation.
Right.
But if they were so in the weeds of delivering the client services and their full day is just doing the work or selling, and there's no one else who could step in, they're not going to have any time to go, well, how do we pivot? What are we going to do about this situation? And oftentimes they just keep plodding along until the problem really manifests itself. But sometimes, like for COVID-19, when it all started to spread around the world, there was a window there and a period where fast-moving business owners were thinking about the pivot. They were making the change. And there were some businesses that did incredibly well because they had the space to go and think and say, this is how we're going to change things. And then they were actually in a much better position, other than the people that kept on just going, well, let's just keep going how we've always gone. And, you know, after 3 months or 6 months, you know, when all of their work had dried up, they realized it was too late. So I think, definitely the idea of systems creates space. You're not going to always optimize for every probable scenario, but the business owner does their best work when they can problem solve. So we need to give them space to problem solve.
Right. Okay. So then I guess to close it off, David, can you go over or tell us the 7 stages that we should follow in order to systemize our business?
Yeah, so the book Systemology talks about the 7 stages, and I'll just grab the graphic just here. It's just this one. If you are watching, we'll see if that works. There you go. It's just this one over here. So the first stage is the define stage. That's all about identifying the central 10 to 15 systems that really deliver the value inside your business. So how do you sell your product or service, and how do you deliver that product or service? That's under define, because there's so many things you could systemize. You have to be able to focus. And step number 1 is all about getting the focus. Step number 2, assign, is when then we start to think about, of the systems that we identified in step number 1, who knows how to do those currently? Like, do you have a team member who's currently doing it that is a knowledgeable worker? And we want to identify that person because they're going to be the person that helps us create the systems. Step number 3 then is then about the extraction. How do we then get the knowledge out of their brain? And I gave you a little bit of a tip earlier around making it a 2-person job. That's one of the keys there. Another important component of that extraction step is to make sure that you have a system for creating systems. You need to have a way that these systems are created. Step number 4 is about then how do we take the knowledge that's extracted and how do we integrate it into your business? Like, how do we put it into project management platforms? Where are you storing all of this knowledge? How do we make it someone's responsibility? Then that kind of moves to step number 5, which is really getting the staff to buy in. I do call this stage integrate because it's about getting the whole team involved. And how do you address resistance? If some team members don't like systems and processes and don't want to change the way that they're doing things, how do you handle those situations? That said, though, you mentioned COVID earlier, and I'll mention it here because there's never been a better time in history to systemize your business than right now, because COVID has meant there's so much change going on in the world that your staff are accepting of change. If you say, hey, we're now changing the way that we're doing things, or we're going to go this systemized approach because, COVID has meant we need to re-engineer, you get very little resistance because team members have change at home. They've got change in their community. They've got change in their work lives. Like, there's changes everywhere right now. So it's the perfect time. Step number 6 is around scale. And that's where we start to think about what systems do you need to scale the business? The very first stage, which was define, it's where is the first 10 to 15 systems that we start. Whereas the scale stage, where we're up to now stage number 6, that is, well, what other systems do we need? There might be some management systems or some HR systems or some finance systems. And then the final stage is stage number 7, which is optimize. And it's a little bit counterintuitive because a lot of people try and optimize right up front and they try and make the systems perfect and just right the first time they design it. But I want everybody to understand that optimization is an iterative process. It's something that happens over a long period of time. So the best thing that you can do is step number 1 is just capture what you're currently doing. Find out what your current best practice is. Get everybody up to that level and you'll get tremendous wins in the business. Just getting everybody up to best practice standard, you'll have some breakthroughs and wait till optimization once you get towards the end of the process. So that's the 7 stages of systemology. It's define, assign, extract, organize, integrate, scale, and then optimize.
And could I add that even after going through all these 7 stages, the system is never going to be 100% perfect. Even McDonald's, who have been in business for all these many decades, they still optimize every so often, and they tweak here and there to improve. And markets and situation changes, and you have to always continuously adjust. So wow, so this is amazing, David. I just like to say to my listeners that not following a system has cost me not only thousands of dollars, but hours and hours. When I was, either running the uh, tourist sites, tourist rental, I was doing everything. And I would work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. When I was the owner of a dance school, I was just working just as much. And it's all because I didn't have a system. So I just recommend to everyone to get this book. If you don't want to be a slave for your business, this is the only thing that you can do. So David, can you tell us one more time, for the fifth time, I guess, the title of the book and where people can follow you?
Yes. So the book, it's called Systemology: Create Time, Reduce Errors, and Scale Your Profits with Proven Business Systems. So it's Systemology. You can head over to Amazon. If you're a podcast listener, you'll be happy to know there's an Audible version of the book. So you can listen to the audio version, or you can get the print copy, whatever your preference is. And if you head to systemology.com/book, there's also all the links through to Amazon and some of the other book places, depending on which part of the world that you're in. And there's some additional resources and things like that. You can get to the podcast and those sorts of things as well. That's systemology.com/book.
Oh, David, this is a huge subject, and I'm sure I missed something. So I wonder if there's anything I missed that maybe you wanted to bring out.
Look, probably the only thing is, if we manage to light that systems fire inside you, and the person listening to this sees this as a reason to give systems another look, because they might have written it off in the past, then I think I've achieved the goal here. The goal here is to just get you to go, yeah, systems are important. Yeah, I think I can do this. I'm going to find out more about it. And I want you to test some of those assumptions that you have. If you think, yeah, I tried to systemize in the past and it didn't work, then I want you to go, well, maybe there's another way to do this. Maybe there's another approach. Maybe I need a different system for systemizing my business. And that's really what systemology is about. It's to try and get you to look at it in a different way from someone who's not a systems person. Like, even though I've written the book on systems, I am a visionary creative. Like, I'm like a lot of business owners. So I've written this book on how I've solved that problem, even though I'm not really a systems person.
Wow, amazing. David, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.